Hey, Neen, it's so wonderful to see you this afternoon.
Oh, I love seeing your gorgeous face, and I love reading about all the work that you're doing for your clients. Every time I'm somewhere like the Comcast Center or with people that you and I both get to play with, your name is always coming up as such a positive influence on people.
Likewise, which is why I wanted to reach out to you today. I was thinking about how to be of service, something that you and I think about all the time, and how to make a positive contribution in a time that is very uncertain and unsettling for people. And then I was thinking about here it is Monday morning, the first time many people are working from home for the first time or leading teams virtually and trying to think about how to organize their days that used to be back-to-back meetings nonstop, like crazy, and now in many cases it's like open space. And I thought, gosh, what would be a good focus of our attention? Your work and your messaging is very much around putting your attention where it pays, attention pays, and really being mindful about the choices you're making. So I thought it was a good time to bring in the expert here and say, what recommendations do you have for people?
What a treat and what a wonderful way to serve the world. There is this uncertain time for people, and you and I both know it's such a privilege to be able to work from home because not everyone is in that privileged position right now with what's happening in our world. Even this morning, there was someone who was still helping me at the supermarket. There is someone who's still answering the phone and trying to help people out in the best way they can. One of the things that I think we have to consider is that we need to take a context of kindness.
Mm.
And so, one of the things that you mentioned, the book Attention Pays, I believe it's intention that makes attention valuable. And so, when our intentions as leaders, as team members, whether it is in your team, your company, your church, your temple, your community, we have to really approach this with, I think, an incredible intention of being very thoughtful right now.
Right.
And so I feel like there's really, just quickly for people who may not know, there's really three ways we pay attention. The first way we pay attention is what I call personal attention. This is about being thoughtful. This is about who deserves your attention. We need to get very clear on that because right now people are in an uncertain time where they have emotions they maybe haven't experienced before. They have fears and concerns and challenges. So the first way we pay attention is personal attention. The first thing I want to say to people is check in with the people you love. It could be, obviously, you love and adore your team, the people you share your life with, but maybe you have some people that you can't have in your line of sight right now. They need to feel seen and heard. So be really thoughtful with them. We can talk more about that as strategies. The second way we pay attention is professional attention, which is what deserves your attention. This, to your point, is about being productive. Like, what really needs to be done? What could you focus on that will give you the greatest return on your attention? And then the third way we pay attention is called global attention. This is how you show up in the world. This is about being a responsible and contributor and being a great citizen. So right now, more than ever, there's some timeliness around this, right? So the three ways we pay attention is personal, professional, and global. Who deserves your attention? What deserves your attention, and how you're paying attention in the world. And so maybe we could unpack some of those. But I think people who are watching this, just get super clear who and what deserves your attention, because that's a really great place to start.
That's fantastic, Neen. Thank you for taking a lot of thought leadership and synthesizing it into something bite-sized for us today. So when you think about who, the starting place with the who, what are some ways that you recommend people think about that?
Let's start with your most intimate circle. If you're fortunate to share your life with someone, your partner, your family, let's start with them first. And so my first suggestion to everyone is just get a read for how people are feeling. And it's okay. However they feel is okay. If they're scared, reassure them you get it. If they're confused, help them understand what they're missing. Because unfortunately, people are getting sources of information from not credible sources. And look, even myself, just so for full transparency, last week I found myself reading way too much social media, watching way more news than I normally would. And so we have to really just check in with our most intimate circle. The next circle out is your immediate circle. These are your team members. These are your colleagues. This is your leadership team. And so what I would recommend people do is there's two ways you can do it right now. in order for everyone to be under this self-quarantine, to be responsible citizens right now, is phone, text, Zoom, but do it digitally. So what I would recommend is, it's so easy to combine the affection and love and tone by simply just grabbing your cell phone and shooting a video message.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of just sending a text message, if you've never tried it, now would be a great time to open up and send a video message. If you have team members who are working remotely, check in with them and say, hey, can you FaceTime in 10 minutes? Can you Zoom in 15 minutes? How are you doing? What are you thinking about? What is your priority today? How can I help you as a leader? Because you might have run into them in the hallway or in the elevator in the car park, but now they don't have the luxury of running into you as their leader and checking in, right? So you've got to create these little moments for them to check in. You may also need to script that a little bit too and say, hey, let's check in at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Let's all just jump on a virtual Zoom, grab your coffee, let's get on together. So what you would do in your day as a leader, look for digital ways to create the same environment. Does that make sense, Joanna?
Totally makes sense. And, you know, I was just on a Microsoft Teams call a minute ago. We're on Zoom right now. There's FaceTime. My kids told me that you could do FaceTime with groups now. Didn't know that. You swipe left and everybody can, you know, join the same call. So yeah, I think it's being creative. Like that was one of the things I was talking about with the community this morning is, you know, how to be a creative leader right now and to approach things in a new way. And I think you're giving us some really good food for thought. So something that you said when you talked about your most intimate circle, just this could be out of bounds. So just say next. But for some people, being in close proximity with even their family or their significant others, perhaps they have a studio apartment or a really, you know, a living space that's not conducive for everybody to be home together, or they're just not accustomed to that. You know, we're creatures of habit. So now, you know, we're in the habit of going to the office or traveling or being in the airport, and now we're at home with people that we typically see perhaps on Saturdays and Sundays. You know, is this do you have some words of wisdom?
Oh my goodness. I cannot tell you. It's so funny you're asking me about this because last week I sent a note out to people who are on my newsletter list, and I don't send it regularly, but I just said, hey, can we please be kind to each other? And here's the things I'm going to do under a self-quarantine. So I had a big list and was reminding people, check in on your elderly neighbors, tip more generously, you know, please be kind, all these things. And then I got this flood of emails of people, and some people were like, Neen, you don't understand. Like, I live in this tiny apartment in the city, and what, like, I don't want to kill my partner, but like, what is going to happen? So there was a couple
Help me.
Exactly. It's not that they don't love them, they absolutely do. But I think now we're in this unprecedented time where some people in relationships haven't navigated that level of intimacy in a small space before. Even if you have a big house, same. So a couple of suggestions I would make is for the people that you share your homes with, set up some guidelines. So set up some guidelines around what does an interruption look like and when is that okay? Post-it notes work really well. Whenever I'm doing video in my office, my husband and I both have a home office at other ends of our house. I put a post-it note on my door that says video in process or phone call in process. And so it's a signal to each other, hey, just don't open the door, right?
Yeah.
But what you can do is you can turn this into a positive. At the beginning of the day, you could say, hey, do you want to have lunch together today? What time would work for you? So it's kind of like you set up a lunch date with a colleague. Now you're setting up a lunch date with somebody that you share your home with, right? So for some of my girlfriends and some of the guys who I love, who I kind of call my girlfriends, we set up virtual accountability appointments with each other as well. So because people are working remotely and so they don't go crazy with their partner, we've set up some accountability calls so that they have someone else to talk to.
Okay.
But what's also important is to understand that just because you're sharing your space with the love of your life doesn't mean they want to hear about every business call you've had, doesn't mean that they want to know everything that's going on in the office. So you have to be able to protect the integrity of those amazing moments you have together, but also realize they're not necessarily your sounding board. So whatever agreements you make, And then if, say, for example, there's music on or television on or sound in the background, you need
Dogs.
to negotiate up front. What does that look like? I love having music on, but it doesn't necessarily help my husband who's having international calls, right? So we have to have these agreements in place. So if you've never worked in that space before, set up some boundaries, make a lunch date, agree on what's going to happen as far as what are your movements in the day. If you're making a coffee or a matcha for yourself, would it be nice to invite the other person if you'd? So I think it's just about being more thoughtful, being more conscious, being more caring, be super conscious of noises. My voice carries in my house. I mean, obviously I know I sound like I'm 5, so I have to be super conscious of not like laughing too loud if he's on a call or something like that. So be kind to each other and get out. If you have an opportunity to just go for a walk and not impact anyone else's life, get out of your space, get out of your house, and also separate your business time from your personal time.
Yeah.
So if, for example, over dinner, you're going to have just dinner together, if you are fortunate to do that, just have dinner together and let's talk about anything but the virus. Let's talk about anything but some of the crazy negativity. So create boundaries, use Post-it notes, be careful of noises, be careful of how your voice, the tone and everything. And let's extend extreme kindness and grace to each other, because things that maybe irritate you just on a Saturday or Sunday, they're still going to irritate you Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So let's just be kinder.
Right. Oh, such good advice. Thank you. I know these are unusual circumstances that nobody prepared for. So I think for us to acknowledge some of the unexpected challenges that we're having with the new normal is healthy, and your tips are spot on, and I think are really going to serve those and their long-term relationships. So then you talked about the what. So the professional attention is on the what. And I think that's another thing for us to, re-clarify right now, because I think when we walk in the doors of our offices, that's a little more obvious than it is right now. So what is some suggestion you have for that?
Create an environment, whatever that looks like. It might be your kitchen table, your spare bedroom, the little tiny space that you're carving out in a closet somewhere for yourself, but carve out a space. And this is where you want to collate paper. So any paper type files you would normally work with, any paper you're going to consume or use, keep it together. Get yourself a tray or some system, a box. I don't care what you do, one of your Amazon recycle boxes. Stick it down, that's going to be your space, right? So create a space. So you have a place that triggers for you, it's time to go to work. Also, if you don't use a headset, I'd encourage you to consider something that will block out the distractions that you're not used to working in a particular space. So create an environment that will feel more productive. Headphones are great. Being able to have a desk is a luxury. And if you don't have that, create a space that feels like your own, right? The other thing that I would suggest is there were things you would probably do on your commute. So let's just say maybe you commuted and you listened to a podcast on your way to work. Consider creating the same routine. So consider still listening to a podcast as part of your development. One thing everyone knows, I'm a huge advocate for having a strategic appointment with yourself every day. And I believe that you invest 15 minutes every single day. It's one of our systems of attention. And you create your 15-minute appointment and you identify your top 3 not negotiable activities. So before your head hits the pillow tonight, what are you going to get done? I want to encourage people to try that, especially from home. What are 3 things you absolutely must get done today? So if you want to accelerate your productivity, have a strategic appointment with yourself and get an accountability buddy. So my friend Tamsin, we've been doing this for years. Every Monday I send her my goals, personal and professional. And every Friday I send her an update on everything I got done. Now, believe me, Shannon, on Thursday night, sometimes I'm scrambling to get things done because I don't want to send her a note that says, I didn't get this done, right?
Sure.
Yeah, so consider a colleague you could be accountable to, because I believe public accountability drives private accountability. If you tell someone, I'll get this to you by Thursday at 3 o'clock, if nothing else, that's what drives your behavior. So put some deadlines on yourself that normally someone could come into your office or you could walk to their cubicle. You don't have that luxury right now. So get really clear on what you want to do, find an accountability partner and create some deadlines. Because when you do that, you'll find, okay, I can do this. And you know what? Give yourself a break. If you need a coffee, if you want to go out, if you just need some fresh air, then please take those breaks, because there is this mental health issue that is happening right now that we're not addressing. And we're expecting people to stay productive. And one of my clients this morning said, Neen, it's business as usual. I was like, no. It's not, because it's not usual. It's unusual. And we can't pretend people have just picked up everything and they've gone home.
Right.
They have little people to take care of. They have pets making noise. They have parents that are aging. It's not business as usual. So please give each other some slack and do the same thing. Give yourself some grace as well.
Amen. That's so important, because I think we're way more likely to be generous with other people and hopefully give others a break, but we're less generous with ourselves very often. So this is a great time for us to practice both. Yeah. And, I love the Stephen Covey quote where he says, we judge others by their behavior and we judge ourselves by our intentions. And when you talked about intention produces attention, and then you just gave us this brilliant advice to set that tone every morning and decide what are the 3 things, because then you have that sense of accomplishment too. I mean, isn't that really important?
Yes. And the other thing too is, just because you're working remotely doesn't mean you're working 24/7. And so I want to encourage you, like, don't carry your cell phone everywhere. You do not take this to the bathroom. I mean, that's disgusting. But you don't have to have your phone with you like 24/7. And you have office hours. And I want to encourage you to consider using your out of office message more clearly, more cleverly. I'm working remote today. And I'll be able to answer your emails by 6 o'clock East Coast time, or whatever your time zone is. But I want people to just think, just because you're working from home doesn't mean you have to work harder, which is often what happens. Shannon, I remember when I was very early in my career, I was allowed to work from home. I was in the oil industry. I'd never done it before. Was it the oil industry? No, it was in banking. And I was so paranoid that if I went to the bathroom, my boss would call. And I was so scared to even not be on my email. I remember thinking and I was working harder because I had to prove that I was working remotely. Sure. So let's trust each other. If you've allowed your team to be able to have this opportunity, whether it was forced on you or not, let's trust that they're going to get their work done. Let's give them some grace that maybe they're not going to be as productive as normal because they have so many other things on their mind. Sure. So I think that, look, if you can get 30% productivity out of your people right now, it's pretty good.
Yeah, that's a really good standard, because I think a big part of it is setting appropriate expectations. I think when we have expectations that don't meet our reality, that's when we feel uncomfortable about things in life. And right now, because this is so new and unprecedented, it's not fair for us to think that we're going to have accurate expectations of what does a productive day look like. Right. So I think to start with something that's doable, like a 30% productivity rate on average is that's reasonable. And that could meet our expectation. And then I think as we all become more comfortable with our new habits and our new way of operating and communicating and holding each other accountable and setting goals and all these great things, I think then we could, increase our expectations. But for now, let's all just learn together and get into a groove. And I think your suggestions about picking a place to set up shop, because some people who aren't working in the office work well at Starbucks. And we're saying, well, we're not going to Starbucks now because we're being obedient to what we're being asked to do. So now it's okay. In the space that I have available to me that is protected, from us being exposed to other people and sharing what we may have been exposed to, how can we make that space the most productive and be kind to ourselves and to other people? This is really helpful.
And please, the self-care piece, Shannon, I think is something we're not talking enough about. One of the things that I had posted on social media last week is, for people who don't know, Shannon and I both have the privilege of speaking around the globe to some really cool clients, but it means we spend a lot of time on planes, in airports and convention centers. And I love what I do. I commute, it's just I fly. Some people drive, I fly. It's the same, right? Yeah. So what that means is now I'm at choice about, I can eat healthier, I can meditate longer, I can work out differently. And so what I want people to think about is all those things you've been meaning to take care of. Getting better sleep, eating cleaner, drinking more water, going out for a walk, getting, my goal is 10,000 steps by 10 a.m., right? It's to drink 3 liters by 3 o'clock. Like I have these silly little games I play, but I fill up all my water bottles 8 in a row and I just have to drink them. I carry them everywhere.
Yep.
It's easier to do these things when you're in control at home. So what I'd love people to consider is if there's something you've been thinking you might like to do, how about trying it out? I have 30 years of photographs of being married to the love of my life. And I decided this is the week that I'm going to go find a digitization service and I'm going to send all my photos and they're going to be scanned and someone's going to keep them safe for me. Now I look at these photos and I think, gosh, I wish I could do that. Well, you know what? Now I got time because I'm not flying anywhere. So this is the time to consider projects that you've been putting off as a leader, as a team member. What are some things? Maybe this is a perfect opportunity for you to finally clear your inbox, unsubscribe from all those newsletters. Maybe this is the time to get off distribution lists. Maybe this is the time to cancel magazine subscriptions. Maybe this is the time to do an expenses audit and get rid of all those unnecessary expenses that just come to your credit card every single month, but you think, it's only $15, it's only this, it's only $50, it's only all adds up. And now more than ever, we want to be diligent with the resources we have, our time, attention, and our energy, and the finances. So let's be really responsible with what's getting our attention, where we're putting our time, where we're putting our money, where we're putting our attention. This is a perfect time to do those audits.
Oh, I agree. And a lot of what you talked about are things like we want to clear out some of the clutter.
Yes.
And then I think the sister to that is the creative side. So like, is there a blog you wanted to write or a thank you letter? I'm going to be talking more about that later this week.
Mm-hmm.
People that you want to recognize. You already brought up the individuals who are still working right now and pumping gas and working at the grocery store. And, so how can we be more attentive and appreciative to those individuals? And, I think that clearing out the clutter and then like reprioritizing the things that really matter and hopefully have a positive lasting impact in the world. Like your wedding video or your 30 years of photos. I mean, that's like that.
I have a personal policy. I write a thank you note every day. And so the way I do that, it's called systemized thoughtfulness as part of the system that we have in our book. But I always carry stamp stationery with me everywhere. So
Yeah, me too.
while since you've written an old-fashioned letter, the great thing is that the postal service will pick it up from your mailbox if you're watching from America. So that's like we didn't do that in Australia. It was such a novelty to me. You could put the little flag up and along came the postman and then he would pick it up. It's amazing. I still get excited about that. But every day I make a point of making sure there's something in my letterbox. Oh, what do we call it? A mailbox in America. But in my letterbox so that I'm sending something to someone.
Yeah.
Last week was a great opportunity for me to send flowers to people thinking, well, they're going to be in their homes for a whole week. So what a lovely thing that they could see these every day. This is a really great time to leverage. If there are small businesses in your life that you love and you're concerned about them, now is a great time to buy gift certificates for them and just to keep them afloat. Whether you can use them or not, I don't know, but let's hope. Right?
Yeah.
Now is a great time to leverage online and delivery services. And it's also, if you are going to make a trip to the store, could you text a few neighbors and say, hey, do you need anything? I'll leave it at your front door. Because there's ways we can still help each other while we're still doing what we need.
Yes.
But you can leverage opportunities to have delivery if you have the luxury of doing that. But let's be really conscious that not everyone has the privilege of working remote. Some people are still out there on the front lines doing some really hard work, and we have to be so much more kind to them, generously tip wherever you get an opportunity, but let's make sure, because there's a lot of people uncertain even about their work right now.
For sure. And one of the things you wrote in your newsletter, which I'll include in this post here so everybody has access to it, was to be mindful of your elderly neighbors or individuals who, really are at the high risk category, and how can we be more helpful to them? Like my husband right now is at a doctor's appointment with his father, and his intention is to, keep his father in the car. He's going to go into the office, check in for him so that he's not sitting around in the lobby waiting room. And then he'll come and get him when it's his time to see the physician. And I think that's, it's a minor thing. And then he's going to make him dinner and make sure his fridge is stocked. that he's, good to go for a couple of days. So how we can be really more intentional, back to that word that you shared with us. That's really a place that we could contribute, and it gets our mind off of the news and the chaos and the swirl and the uncertainty, and really puts our energy into something productive.
Yeah, and I feel like this morning one of my posts was that I think a self-quarantine is not selfish. It's a really generous thing to do for the benefit of everyone else. And so I've decided as part of my self-quarantine is to do a social media detox as well. And I love doing a social media detox. I've done many throughout the years, but it's just, I felt like I was going down these crazy rabbit holes last week. And I don't spend a lot of time on Facebook, but I spend a lot more time than I should have. I love Instagram. That's where I really love to play. It's my adventures. But I just kept scrolling. And then 20 minutes would go by, and I'm never going to get those 20 minutes back. Like, that's it. They're gone. They're spent. Right? So I decided today, even if it's just for a few days, and seriously, at the time of recording this, I feel so much lighter. I don't know what's happening in the world, so that's a little irresponsible, but I'm sure someone will text me if something significant happened. One of my dear friends texted me and said, hey, the Canadian borders are closed. Is everyone okay in your life? I was like, good to know. Good to know. But I could have wasted 20 minutes on reading all about that.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
Have to really protect our attention right now.
Discipline. Yes. Self-discipline. That's a really helpful reminder to say, like, we can choose.
It's hard to do. It's hard to do.
It is. I mean, in part, it's because, to your point, you want to stay informed. You don't want to, be ignorant to what's going on. And you also could be informed to an adequate degree and then say, okay, that's enough. I'm going to go outside. I'm going to make sure I'm staying fresh for the benefit of others. So the last circle that you talk about is the how, the global attention. Can you share a little bit about that? Because I think that's really primed right now.
The way that I look at the three ways we pay attention, personal, professional, and global, who deserves our attention, what deserves our attention, and how we pay attention in the world. And global could be the simplest things like how are we impacting the planet? Now that sounds really big, I know, but what if you were recycling more generously? What if you were printing less paper? What if you did take your bags to the store instead of getting the ones that are plastic and hurt the environment? That's very global. But what about if we started in our own neighborhood? It goes back to how can we pay attention to our elderly neighbors who live alone, to the single parent who's trying to juggle multiple children and only has one way of getting one child to a particular sport. Could you offer to be able to help as a service to take people where they need to be? Could you offer to walk someone's pet if they are out working extended hours and they have someone at home? So I think it's everything about our community as much as it is about our world. And right now our world feels quite small because we have been confined to our own neighborhood. So I feel like how we pay attention in the world, it's not just about how we take care of the planet, it's how we take care of each other on the planet in the communities we serve. So what that also might mean is checking in with people in your church, your temple, your community, and say, hey, does anyone need help? Can I take someone to a doctor's appointment like your wonderful husband is doing with his dad? Can I make some soup for some people and just leave it at their front door? Like, are there little ways, if you're going to make a meal, could you make extra for someone in your neighborhood who might need it? I think what we need to be really conscious of is we have this situation right now, but how we act in this situation right now, the short-term decisions we make have long-term impact.
Yes.
So people will remember how you behaved. They will remember if they felt seen by you or heard by you. They will remember as an employer, were you proactive about taking care of them, or did you have to wait for all the government advice to come down? I've counseled so many of my CEOs in the last 48 hours about strategies where they need to get ahead of announcements so their team can see they're taking care of them proactively, not waiting until someone tells them they have to hunker down for 2 months or whatever. Do you know what I mean?
Sure. I know exactly what you mean. And I think that this is an unusual time in that everyone on the planet is affected by it.
Right.
Right. I mean, like I was at one point equating it to 9/11, and then I thought, yeah, 9/11 with the horrible events that happened in New York City and other places of the US was something that everyone was aware of, similar to like a tsunami or other natural disasters that were heartbreaking. And those who were personally impacted were like devastated. And then those associated with those people were, you know, obviously compassionate and empathetic to the situation. But for many people, they didn't personally have an individual in their lives who was affected, or it wasn't something that they had to manage their own behavior to adjust to the situation. And this is one of those things that it's a leveler. It's like fire or heights, you know, where like everyone has fear. Everyone's affected.
How old you are, how young you are, how rich you are, how poor you are, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Right?
Or where you live on the globe. You know, I mean, I think it's just a really unique, if we look at it this way, it's like it's a unique opportunity to really connect to people in a way that we had never had before. It's like oxygen, you know, it's like something, every living thing needs oxygen, right? Every living thing right now is affected by this situation. And the most responsible thing we can do is to, you know, stay socially isolated so that we're not perpetuating the problem. And I think in some cases that feels selfish, but what we're learning is it's actually selfish to not participate in this.
I'm seeing people having quarantine parties, and I'm like, what is wrong with you that you don't understand what's happening, right? I will judge you for that. But one thing I want people to consider is, technology does allow us to stay connected. Technology is not the enemy of our attention. We are. We can choose to text someone. We can choose to FaceTime them. You reached out to me and said, hey, let's Zoom. We did. It's very easy because technology gives us the tools now to check in with people and to be able to phone them, text them, email them. So things that haven't stopped is connectivity. We can still connect. That hasn't changed. We can still take care of our health. That hasn't changed. We can still be grateful. That hasn't changed. And so there are things that maybe we had to stop doing some things and going out socializing, but those people are still important to us. And every human wants to be seen and heard. Now more than ever before, we have a chance to make sure people feel seen and they feel heard. It's just we're not doing it face to face right now.
Right. Yes. Well said. Thank you so much, Neen, for sharing this wisdom with us and giving us some practical strategies and ideas for ways that we could adjust our attention and be more intentional about where we're focused and the kind of impact that we want to make, and just, you know, some self-regulatory types of things. So if there's one thing that individuals take out of this, I'd love for them to tell us in their comments so that we can understand how to support them. Because to your point too about, you know, make a commitment outside of your head and tell someone like, this is what I'm up to today. I'm up to the 10,000 steps, or I'm up to the, you know, being outside, or sending a thank you note a day, or whatever it is.
I put on social media that I would write my next book. And I've been putting it off. And I have a publisher who's very interested in the book, and I keep going, yeah. No, you know, no one's got time for that right now. Okay. So I put it on social media, and the publisher reached out to me over the weekend. They're like, so we saw that you said you would write it. And so I have a call with them tomorrow, and I was like, okay. And I was like, man, talk about accountability.
Woo! The boomerang of the universe.
Anyone watching this, I don't like writing. It's not my favorite thing. And I have obviously written a lot of books.
Yeah.
I thought that was really, it proves my point that public accountability drives private accountability, because now I'm scrambling to write the outline for my call with the publisher tomorrow. But I think what we can do is use this time to, there's been something on your mind. There's been a conversation you wanted to have. There's been a friend you haven't seen in a long time. There's a high school sweetheart that you want to reach out to. There's an aunt that you haven't talked to in the longest time. Now's a really perfect time to make the most, because you're not commuting, so you've time back every day. Don't fritter it away on Netflix or fritter it away on social media. Take some of those extra minutes you've been granted, because once those moments are spent, you don't get them back. You and I get 1,440 minutes in a day, and our choice how we use them is what's really going to give us those long-term results.
Yes. Thank you so much, Neen.
What a privilege. I love chatting to you.
Yes, likewise. I can't wait to the days that we can see each other in person again.
Very soon.
But for now, this works.
This is perfect.
Thanks for always being so generous with your time, energy, and wisdom.
My privilege.
All right, we'll see you soon.